2020 is nearly over. We've almost made it, and I don't have the words to succinctly sum up just what a mess this year has been. But thankfully, that's not what we're talking about today. At least not entirely. No, today we wanted to take some time and look at the year that was for the tech industry, and to, more importantly, pick out some of the bright spots and lament some of the things that didn't work out. We've put together a whole list of winners and losers, as we're calling them, over on Engadget.com. And since I'm not going to cover all of them in this video, I definitely recommend you check out our full stories. There is a lot to get into. So, in no particular order, let's start with some of our winners of 2020. First up, game consoles. And I'm not just talking about new ones like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series S and X, though they are currently giving some lucky gamers a taste of the near future of home entertainment. I have to say, Nintendo Switch was also crucially important, if for no other reason than it's relatively cheap and it gave the world a chance to bond over what seemed like a universal love of Animal Crossing. This year, honestly, one of the best things you could do for your well-being was to allow yourself to embrace joy where you could find it. And for a lot of people, that was through these consoles. Whether you were visiting your friends' islands from your Switch, or watching people flail around in Fall Guys on your PS4, or working through some of the classics in Xbox Game Pass, game consoles have given us ways to enjoy ourselves and feel less alone. And for many of us this year, that has made all the difference. Some of you are probably PC Master Race types, so we obviously had to include NVIDIA's RTX 3080 GPU, which kind of changed the game when it launched in September. For just about the first time ever, you could make 4K gaming on your PC a reality without spending ridiculous amounts of money on a single component. It's really no surprise then that gamers have been clamoring to get their hands on these things and its stablemates since launch, and we'll get into exactly what they had to put up with a little later. Let's take a turn into more familiar territory for me, foldable phones. The hype arguably peaked in 2019 when we got our first look at devices like the Huawei Mate X, the Galaxy Fold, and the Motorola Razr, and yeah, they had their issues. What makes foldables a category worthy of being a winner in 2020 is how quickly the companies who make these things learned from their mistakes. Think about it. Motorola's original Razr foldable debuted in February of this year, and it was pretty lousy. I mean, it really felt like a $1,500 phone that acted like a phone that cost a third of that. But Motorola, not wanting its foldable ambitions to die on the vine, released a 5G-friendly refresh that actually fixed many of my issues with the first one. And while the first Galaxy Fold felt like an expensive experiment, the Z Fold 2 proved that Samsung could work through troubling early design issues. Now, I grant you, I personally gave it a score that a lot of people disagreed with because of the state of its software, but the Z Fold 2 was so clearly brimming with potential that I had to buy one for myself. No matter how you look at foldable phones, they are in better shape now than they were last year. Now we just need these things to get a little cheaper. Speaking of things with tremendous potential, we had to include Apple's new M1 system on a chip. It's an evolution of the silicon the company has packed into iPhones and iPads for years, but I think we were all kind of taken aback at just how good the M1 was right out of the gate. With 8 CPU and 7 or 8 GPU cores, depending on your configuration, both the M1 equipped MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro kind of blew away comparable Intel or AMD-based PCs in the Geekbench 5 benchmarks, and they still seem to run non-native Intel apps via Rosetta 2 more than fast enough for daily use. And let's not forget about battery life. A Mac with an M1 will go all day and then some on a single charge. There is still plenty of time for Intel and AMD and Qualcomm to respond, but for now, Apple gets to enjoy one of the industry's rarest treats, a launch that was nearly flawless. I've got one last winner for you before we switch gears, and that is home fitness tech, and hear me out on this. In the early phases of the pandemic, finding free weights and yoga blocks was as hard as finding a PS5 is now. In the meantime, connected fitness platforms saw business boom as people spent more time away from their gyms. Tonal, a startup that pairs guided workouts with a smart wall-mounted display and digital weights, raised $110 million to help it meet additional demand. Lululemon dropped $500 million to acquire Mirror, a company that builds mirrors with built-in displays to walk you through exercises. And Peloton, makers of frou-frou connected spin bikes, saw its membership roughly double in a year, particularly when it launched a more affordable frou-frou connected spin bike. People also found that existing gadgets started to evolve in functionality and purpose in response to the COVID era. VR headsets like the Oculus Quest became hard to find, at least partially because new games and fitness services like Supernatural gave people reasons to get out of their chairs. A study conducted by Fitbit around the fall suggested that wearables like the ones it sells could potentially detect early stages of COVID before symptoms manifest. And Apple's latest flagship wearable, the Apple Watch Series 6, features built-in blood oxygen monitoring tools that can be helpful for tracking peak performance, sure, but also potentially troubling respiratory issues. All this tech didn't just help keep people healthy in lockdown, it helped keep people sane, and for that I'm very grateful. Now, I could go on all day about the rest of the winners, and there are quite a few left, but clearly not all was well in tech this year. And I should point out some of our losers relate pretty closely to some of our winners. As I said, for example, we're very grateful for new consoles and hardware this year, but lots of gamers lost in 2020 because of how goddamn impossible it was to actually buy any of this new stuff. Whether you were trying to score a PS5 or an Xbox Series S or X or one of NVIDIA's new 3000 series GPUs, people's attempts to cop new hardware was so frequently stymied by limited supply, scalpers using bots to score stuff they'd immediately flip for profit, and the fact that retailer websites just could not keep up with all of the people trying to buy these things. And even if you did manage to buy the hardware you were after, shipping caused even more problems. There's been a rash of reports from people who ordered Xboxes and PS5s that simply never ever got delivered, and I'm actually one of them. My PS5 is caught up in FedEx limbo, and it has been for weeks, and no one knows where it is. Not that I'm bitter or anything. Earlier, I called foldable phones a winner in 2020, but we just can't say the same about the world's first foldable PC. Our own Sherlyn Lowe tested the new ThinkPad X1 Fold and agreed it deserved a spot on the loser list. The fact that it runs Windows 10 means it never feels fully convincing as a tablet, and its weird little snap-on keyboard thing means it never really feels as good as a proper laptop either. I mean, yes, this thing is all screen and it folds in half, and for all of that, Lenovo gets plenty of style points. But as far as making this foldable tablet PC pleasant to use, well, I mean, look, they've got a long way to go on that front. It's clearly more tech demo than tried and true workhorse right now. Speaking of devices that feel like tech demos, how about the Surface Duo? It is, without question, the sleekest, best-looking dual-screen device we've ever used, and it is a true testament to just how great Microsoft's hardware teams are. Unfortunately, after testing it, we found the Surface Duo was only sort of okay as a phone and actually kind of lousy as a tablet. Where the Surface Duo really fell short was its software, which we both found occasionally buggy and just not easy to wrap your head around most of the time. In fairness to Microsoft, though, some of these early software woes are because it's been trying to coax Android into working with dual screens in a way it was never originally designed to. The end result is a device that, for now and for most people, is all but impossible to recommend. The thing to keep in mind is we've been here before. The original Surface was an odd duck and it didn't work particularly well back then either. Now look at them. The Surface Duo is a certifiable loser this year, but it's the kind of loser we hope Microsoft sticks with for a while. This year we also saw high-profile services run into trouble, and two in particular stand out. Financially speaking, Quibi might have set the loser watermark for the year since investors sank $1.75 billion into a service that shut down after 6 months. Look, Quibi, I know you ran into some pandemic-related snags, but you are also a terrible idea run by boomers with more industry clout than sense. Thank you for giving us something to laugh at, and I'm so glad you're dead. And then there's TikTok, which saw explosive growth going into 2020. But before long, the Chinese company that made it discovered that the bigger you get, the easier a target you are. Earlier in the year, we saw members of the United States Senate move to restrict the use of TikTok on government devices, which makes plenty of sense. I would much rather my representatives advocate for our issues than learn trendy dances and stuff. I don't know. Just a few months later, though, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo signaled that the US might want to ban TikTok altogether, which led to a months-long multi-front battle with the United States government. With a new administration incoming, it looks like the worst might be over for TikTok, but at this point, who even knows anymore? Whew. Like I said earlier, our full list of 2020 losers and winners is quite a bit longer. You should definitely check it out. We'll have all the links in the description, and we'd love to hear your feedback on our picks in the comments below. We also have a few more videos coming out between now and the end of 2020, but I don't think I'm in any of them. So I want to take a moment and say thank you so much, as always, for going on this ride with us. I hope the videos we've made and the stories we've written have given you little ways to escape and stay informed and have a little fun this year. And I hope that you all continue to support and take care of the people around you the way you've supported us. Thanks again, and I think we'll see you next year.